There we go. Okay. So we will start this time in Virasana. I haven't done that for a while, but my ankle is finally back to the point that it is possible. Thank heavens. And so if you need to take support under your sits bones, I'm just showing here. Be sure that it's under the sits bones. Be sure that if you're using a block, it's long way, not narrow way, so that it comes under both sits bones. Be sure that your feet are so wide that on the happy day you come all the way to the floor, you're not sitting on your heels. You want to be sure that the feet are outside the upper hips. And I think I will use a block today because my ankle's still a little tweaky. And then once you have found the proper foot width, go ahead and lift each knee and just elongate the shin bone. And then reach back and pull the toes back. And then come forward, roll the calves out, and carefully sit back down. And Karen, if this is in any way bad on your knees, you can sit in Swastikasana, simple cross legs. Just give yourself enough height under your sits bones that your knees are lower than or equal to your hip blades. And then everybody, whatever seat you're taking, find your two sits bones. Take a moment to notice whether one or the other is heavier and equal them out by pressing more on the lighter one. And then from those 2 points, lift all the way up through the two sides of the torso, up through the sternum, and then up through the back cervical spine to the crown of the head, as if somebody had a string on the very top of your head. Keeping that height, expand your arms. Bring your palms together, and then you can use your thumbs to lift the sternum one more time, and then release those trapezius muscles here at the back of the shoulders down toward the floor. And allow your eyes to softly close. Glasses off if you wear them, to take that pressure off of your temples, and spend a few breaths observing your own breath. We use the breath observation to draw our awareness inward toward the realm of yoga. I'll chant 3 ohms. You can also chant, everybody's muted, or you can just listen. Complete exhalation, full inhalation. Re-lift your chest. Allow your head to release toward your heart. Set an intention for your practice this morning. Then raise your head, release your hands, and softly open your eyes. First up is going to be a little calf mashing. So remove the brick or blanket from under your seat. Bring your shins together, heels together, and then you can take a blanket and roll it up tight and put it on your calves. This might be a very big blanket. We do this, as Gita used to say, to create calves of ghee, actually putting an object in between the calf and the hamstring and sitting on it helps the calves release and elongate and eventually become more supple and do more of what we want them to do in our poses. So just allow the weight of your torso to help press the blanket into the calf. And I'm going to take a teeny bit of blanket for my still healing but much better ankle. Pro tip, don't break your ankle if you want to keep practicing yoga. Yeah, and then move this back. So we started with it at the very top near the near the knee. Now move it back to the mid calf. Oh, that's an interesting place. And again, keep your weight balance on both sides. It shouldn't, you probably aren't on your sits bones now, but make sure that you don't have substantial weight differences on one side of that calf roll or the other, and make sure that you're continuing to lift all the way up straight. Don't let yourself collapse forward. Yeah, I could sure do this every day and it would be really good for my calves. And then move forward and move it back 1 more inch so it's at the very top of where the ankle and the calf connect. And just let the weight of your torso help elongate that muscle. And then come forward and remove the blanket. And anybody, if, Karen, especially if any of these things hurt your knee, unmute yourself and let me know. And anybody, of course, feel free to unmute and talk. I just muted so that the weird delay wouldn't be awful during the ohms. Now we're going to take an Anamooka Virasana. So this one is toes together, knees apart. Take a moment and be sure again that the weight is even on your 2 heels. Your sits bones should be on the heels. And have your 2 bricks near you, unless you're me and one of them's far away. And after you've really established the upright position and the lift of the sternum, then go ahead and walk forward using your bricks to keep your shoulders high and extend your torso. Keep the sits bones on the heels, and if the sits bones come off of the heels, then be sure that you take a piece of blanket and put it between the heels and the sits bones thickly enough so that your sits bones still have something to press back into. You don't want the sits bones just hanging in the air. So extend before you bring your forehead down, just get as long in the torso as you can. Keep pressing the hips back, pressing the sits bones onto the blanket or heels, and extending the torso and arms away. We're moving in 2 directions, bilateral motion. And when you've reached maximum extension, keep the sits bones grounded and let your head come down. If it's too much, especially people with neck injuries, to bring the head to the floor, you can get another brick or a blanket and support your forehead that way. But keep the arms up to keep the armpits open and support your forehead on something. Keep pressing the sits bones back. Keep extending the arms forward. Then raise your head. Walk your bricks, I'm mirroring, walk your bricks over to the right. I have to move my abdominal flesh over that thigh. Keep the torso, the back, and the chest and the back parallel to the floor. Don't let it twist as you come over. Just keep it parallel to the floor. We're going sideways, but we're not rotating. And once you've gotten your maximum sideways extension, and you should be feeling a nice long stretch on your left side, you can even bend your right arm to get more extension in that left side with a straight left arm. Once you've gotten as far as you can, then allow the head to descend again. And this time I do need a brick. And stretch that left side body. And then come back up to your fingertips. Back to center. Go ahead, extend center again and come down. We'll take 2 breaths in the balanced position. And then come up, and this time go to your left. Again, I move my abdominal flesh, pull the right sits bone back to its right heel. See how it wants to get light when you come over to the left? So keep that right sits bone grounded, keep the torso parallel to the floor, don't let it rotate up, and extend now through your right side body. Bend your left arm to get a little more rotation of that side body. And then come back up, back to the center, extend, and we'll once more take 2 breaths here. And come all the way up to sitting. Then remove the support, if you had any, under your hips. Move your blocks. Come forward and cross your shins behind you, and then roll over your legs to Dandasana. Here, and if that hurts your knees, just go sideways to a Dandasana position instead of doing the rollover. Dandasana, let's take a proper Dandasana. If, when you're sitting sideways, your back is not able to stay straight up, take 1 or 2 blankets and put them under your sits bones. But if you can sit up straight in Dandasana without support, and be really honest, be sure that your sacrum is not collapsing here, then go ahead and sit up without support. Take your fingertips beside you and help lift the side body from those sits bones all the way up through the sternum, trapezius muscles down. Press the thighs down, extend out through the inner thighs, really reach through the inner heels. Now engage the outer thighs as well. Start with the inner thighs, make sure that that happens, but then both sides of the legs are extending out away from the hips, and then swing the arms up, Urdhva Hastasana, press the sits bones down, press the thighs down, and against that, reach up through the ring fingers, get as long as possible in the torso. Make space. One more breath. And release. Come to all fours, and we'll have our first Padagustasana, downward facing dog of the day. And we'll go sideways. Start with fingers parallel to the edges of the mat. Roll the upper arms forward so that the eyes of your elbows face the wall in front of you. Knees should be a little behind the hips, but the shoulders should be stacked right over the wrists. Tuck your toes under. First, come up into just a little crouch, what we call puppy pose, and press your arms back. See how my arms and back are now in the same line. This is not dog pose, right? One line, you're pushing back so much that there should be just one diagonal line. And then, once you've gotten that one diagonal line and really opened those armpits, then keeping the back and the arms right where they are, straighten the knees, come up on the toes, lift the sits bones to the ceiling. Keep pressing into the first finger and thumb base mound joint, so the 2 palm joints at those fingers, to keep those arms pressing back, to keep that nice diagonal line. And once you've gotten as much extension as you can with the toes, with the heels lifted up on your tiptoes, then keeping the arms and shoulders and back where they are, reach the heels for the floor. Slowly, don't give up anything in the arms, shoulders, and back. So pull the heels toward the floor. It's okay if they don't come all the way. My formerly broken ankle doesn't touch right away. It will probably in the next couple of down dogs, but it's still getting there. But pull toward the floor. Pull the thighs back to the wall behind you. Pull the shoulders up toward the sits bones. 2 more breaths here. Keep working the arms and legs. The work of the arms and legs in Anamooka Virasana, downward facing dog, tractions the spine. That's what makes this such a delicious pose. 1 more breath, and then walk forward. And when your feet are directly under your hips, stop. Lift your knees, engage your thighs, pull those thighs to the wall behind you. Let the torso just hang. And then bring your hands to your hips, roll your shoulders back, and come up to standing. Everybody okay so far? I need the bigger screen. Thumbs down if anybody's having a problem. No problems. Grab a break. To start working this lovely hip socket, which sometimes it's hard to really feel. It's not part of the body that we are always intuitively aware of. Let's go ahead and use a time-honored Iyengar classic. Take your break and put it at the very top of your thighs so that there's a little sticking out in front. And if you're me, there's just a little sticking out in back too. And then walk your feet as close together as you can get them. Be nice if y'all could see my feet. And come to a Tadasana or Samastiti, because my feet did come all the way together. People with thinner thighs can get their feet together. I have substantial thighs and they're strong and I'm happy with that, but that means the feet don't come all the way. So from this position, and this is gonna, you've got some extra stuff in here, it's feeling not quite as spacious as usual. First, just check and see, is that block tilting off to one side or the other? Because if it is, that probably means you're working one thigh more than the other. So try to engage both thighs equally and see if that brings the block more straight forward. And then lift the knees, engage the quadriceps. You should feel the block pressing even more into your thighs now. And from that position, you're engaging the quadriceps and lifting the knees. Move the buttock muscles down toward the floor. So this is me just engaging the legs. This is me moving my buttocks down. So it's actually visible. See how much of a sway back I have before I move the buttocks down. So I'm working the legs. Now I move the buttocks down. And you can see it brought my entire spine more into a line. So align your spine by keeping those buttock muscles moving down. Then check in with the feet. Are you pressing equally on the inner and outer big toe base joints? Are you pressing equally on the inner and outer heels? Press all 4 points equally. Lift the knees, buttocks down to the floor, sternum up, and Garudasana. Check back in with the feet, 4 points. Lift the knees, engage the quadriceps, buttocks down to the floor. Check down at your block. Is it moving? And I can see mine is moving to the right. That means I'm not working my left thigh as much as I should. So I correct that, walk straight forward now, and reach up with the 2 ring fingers. And release. So with that thought of how that Tadasana made our legs feel, oh, we're going to do Vrikshasana first. Hold that thought in your head because we're going to get to it when we do the wide-legged poses. But for now, we're going to do Vrikshasana tree pose. Just making sure it was not one of you guys trying to contact me. Okay. If you need the wall for your Vrikshasana tree pose, you can stand with your buttocks just grazing the wall. But give yourself enough room that you're not squished against the wall because that's going to mess with your balance. If you want to challenge yourself, step a little away from the wall. And if you're worried, you can be at a point so that you can reach back and grab it if you need to, but it's not right there. Also, if you're like me, my feet get dry in the winter, and sometimes my feet just don't stick in Vrikshasana in the winter. So I take a little piece of sticky mat and put it in my thigh. So from Tadasana, take all the points we had a second ago. Imagine the brick was still there. And so squeeze the brick, right? Make sure that it's pointing, your imaginary brick is pointing straight ahead. Then rotate your right leg out, lift it up, and bring it to the very top of your left groin. Hold it for a second. Now, at this point, I've buckled over to the opposite side, and this hip is askew. So I want to descend the bent knee hip. I want to suck in the standing leg side and get myself more even. Once you have your balance, keep pressing into the big toe base joint of the standing leg, Garudasana. Keep descending the bent leg hip. Keep reaching through the big toe base joint of the standing leg. One more breath. Hands down. Oops. Don't fall over. And release the leg. All right. Interesting. Vrikshasana brings us more interior. I recently took a senior teacher's class in which he had us do Vrikshasana in between each standing pose so that we would draw our awareness back inside. Because to balance, you have to be inside yourself. You can't be thinking about what's happening outside yourself in the room or on the screen. Second leg, take your left leg out to the side. Reach it all the way up, hold the ankle, plant the heel as high into the groin as you possibly can. Descend the hip. Suck in the standing leg hip. Keeping those hips level. Keep sucking the 2 hip sockets in toward each other. That keeps the sloshing of the standing leg at a minimum. Reach up through those arms, straighten the elbows any amount. And arms down, then leg down. Vrikshasana, tree pose. Now, keeping all of that big thought hip socket that we've just done, including sucking those hip sockets in, we're going to do a little bit of work with wide-legged poses. So from Tadasana, and if you have knee problems, hip, ankle, even neck problems, step instead of jumping. But if you can, jump wide to Uttita, Hasta, Padasana. And we're going to take a minute. This is actually a pose. I know this looks like the beginning of our standing poses, but it's a pose by itself, Uttita, Hasta, Padasana. And this is a good place to work on how our legs and hips work in these poses. So for a second, just put your hands on your hips so we can focus on the feet. And I'm sure everybody has always heard, first check to be sure that the outer edges of your feet are parallel to the outer edges of your mat. That's important. And then we've all heard press the outer heels, because often, just naturally, our feet tend to roll in this position. So make sure you're pressing those outer heels so that the outer foot has as much weight as the inner foot. But that tends to pull the hips a little out of their socket. So one of the interesting things that I've been working with this week is, with the outer heels pressing, suck the femurs into the hip socket. So I'm still pressing the outer heels, but those femurs are coming in. I do that by engaging the top of the thigh, the bottom of the buttock, and literally trying to compact the two hips. Touch your hips. It's not an easy muscle to find necessarily. And suck everything around here toward each other. And feel how that changes the pose. It really engages the legs in a very different way. So the goal is to keep pressing the outer heels while compacting the hips. And that gives us a much better standing pose leg than just saying press the outer heels. All right? So Uttita, Hasta, Padasana. Let's go ahead and take the full pose. Arms up. Extend through the ring fingers. Lift from the triceps. Make sure that they're not just hanging there. And trapezius down. And for me, I have to remind myself quite intensely, because mine tries to creep up to my neck. And check back in with the heels. Are they still pressing? Check back in with the hip sockets. Are they still compacting? All right, and from here, let's go ahead and go to Trigonosummer. So left toe in a little, right leg all the way to the right. I'm still mirroring. And then re-square your pelvis and torso, because for most of us, the pelvis turns toward the front leg a little bit. So get it back toward the front and lift straight up. Be sure that you're not leaning toward the front leg. We're still straight ahead, right? And from this position, re-ground the back heel, re-suck in both femur bones to their hip sockets, and keeping them compact, go ahead and come sideways. Get long first, keep compacting the hip sockets, don't slosh in the hips, and reach. Get as long sideways as you can. You've got maximum extension, then you can bring your hand down to a shin or a brick, and park your other hand on your hip. Press the back heel again, but compact the hip. See, if I just press the heel, that will eventually give me hip problems because I'm pushing the femur out of its socket. So I press the heel and draw the hip into its socket. Press the left, your right big toe base joint, and pull that femur up into its socket, going that way. So the back leg's pressing down, this hip is pulling backwards. And then from those 2 points, extend the torso straight up, straight away from the hips. That's why we're going this way. And then use the hand on your hip to rotate the torso to the ceiling, any amount. You should have a longer torso to triangle here than you did before you compacted the hips, because compacting the hips lets that entire spine and torso jut out more. And then when you've got maximum extension, raise your left arm. If it's okay with your neck, look up at your thumb. If it's not, you can look straight ahead or even down at the floor, but don't let the chest follow. Keep the chest open, just turn the head if you need to do that. And then pull the 2 arms away from each other, check back in with the heels, compact the hip sockets, rotate the torso one more time. And lift with the top arm to come out, toes forward, And hands to the hips. Then check yourself. Did you go back into your typical pose that doesn't compact the hips? If you did, press those heels, compact the hips. Feel the difference. It's more work, but it really is better for the hips, and it gives you better alignment in lots of ways. Second side. Arms out. This time, right toes in a little, left leg all the way to the left, and re-square the pelvis and torso. Keep sucking the hips in, the femur bones into the hip socket, and extend, 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 extend. When you've got maximum extension, hand to the shin or brick, and the other hand on the hip. And I need just the teeniest bit of support for that formerly broken ankle. So there. And then both hips, back leg, press into the heel, suck the femur into the hip socket. See, I even got longer doing that. Front leg, press into the big toe base joint, pull the hip back behind you as if it's going back to the wall behind you. Extend the torso away from those hips, rotate the torso with the hand on your hip, and then raise your right arm, pull the two arms away from each other. If it's okay on your neck, look at the thumb. Otherwise, look straight ahead or down, and extend. Triangle. And lift from the top arm, toes forward, and step or jump your legs together. Anybody in difficulty? Good. Garudasana. Okay, so half moon pose, and let's do it at the wall, just to focus on the hips instead of balance. So take your mat, long edge to the wall. I'm actually gonna work on the floor because my floor is sticking up. If you need a mat, it should be at the long edge of the wall. And everybody use a brick because it gives your torso more room to come up. And I'm gonna go to the other side. So again, start from Tadasana. Don't jump though. Everybody step your feet wide. And the distance is buttocks just grazing the wall. They shouldn't be pressed against the wall because that would give you a sway back eventually. So buttocks just grazing the wall. Check to be sure that the outer feet are parallel to the edges of your mat or your room. And again, before we even begin, press the outer heels. Suck the femurs into the hip socket. Feel how that extends the torso up. Then left toes in a little, right toes out to the right, and re-square the pelvis and torso back to the front. We're going to take Trigonosummer first. So arms out, come to your Trigonosana and really take the pose. Extend through all four limbs. Rotate the torso to the ceiling. Compact the hips. Then left hand to the left hip. Bend the front leg and hop the back leg up a little. Get the brick in front of you about 10 inches. Depends on your height, actually. And then launch your back leg up. So my standing leg hip is just grazing the wall, but I'm going to bring my lifted leg to the wall so that I have alignment in my torso. Make sure that your leg is straight up and down. The standing leg is straight up and down. Don't let it go to the side, either side. And press into the standing big toe base joint, just like we did in Vrikshasana. So lift up through that hip. And here too, we're sucking that. It's still the front leg. So we're sucking the front leg hip back toward the opposite heel. So now it's as if this hip, we're drawing back toward this heel. And that helps compact the hip socket. Lift from the inner thigh of the lifted leg, extend through the big toe base joint and the heel. And then raise the top arm. Extend all limbs and any amount, rotate the torso to the ceiling. If it's okay on your neck, look up at your thumb. Keep extending. Don't let the top leg just hang. Lift from the inner thigh. Compact the hips. Feel how much extension in the torso compacting the hips gives you. Do an experiment, let the hips go, recompact. It really changes the top part of the pose. One more breath, and then we're gonna come back through Trikonasana to come out. So after that next breath, bend your front knee, reach back with the back leg, and come to Trikonasana. Once again, really take the pose, do your best pose. And then reach up, toes forward, step together, and move your brick to the second side. Tadasana. Outer heels, lift the knees, thighs back, step wide, buttocks just grazing the wall. Outer feet parallel to the edges of the mat or the room. Compact the hips to lift the torso, trapezius muscles down. This time, right toes in a little, left leg all the way left. Re-square the pelvis and torso. From here, ground into the back heel, compact the hips, and take your Trikonasana. Find your best pose. Then, top hand to the hip, bend the front knee and hop the back leg up. Plant your hand on the brick and launch the back leg. As soon as you're up, make sure that your standing leg is perpendicular to the floor. Make sure that you're not leaning back or forward. Press through the big toe base joint. Suck that outer hip back toward the lifted heel. Outer hip of the standing leg goes back to the lifted heel. Lift through the inner thigh of the standing leg. Extend through the big toe base joint. Rotate the torso. And then extend both arms. Ardha half moon pose. Check back through all of those points. Keep compacting the hips. Keep lifting the inner thigh of the lifted leg. One more breath. And remember, we're coming back through Trikonasana. So bend the standing leg. Reach back. Trikonasana. Take your best pose. And then up, toes forward, and step together. All right, so far so good. Now we're heading toward Garudasana. Everybody except Karen. Eagle, no, yeah, it was Karen, right? Whoever has the knee problem is not going to do Garudasana. But because of that, we want to do some things that start the crossover, the hip crossover. So Trikonasana doesn't do a hip crossover, but it does get us in that moving the torso position. So let's go ahead for this Trikonasana. Let's see. And let's use the wall. I like the wall. So use the wall and a brick. Have your, I'm not mirroring now because it wouldn't look like a mirror. So have your right hip to the wall, but a little space in there, and have a tall brick between your right pinky toe and the wall. So from a Tadasana, with my toes next to the brick, I step my left foot back. Maybe just watch first, sorry, because I'm not sure how much everybody has done this pose. Then square the pelvis. We suck those hips into the hip socket again to bring the back pelvis forward and the front pelvis back until they're really square. Then Hasta, both arms up. Then I'm going to bring my right hand to the wall and extend forward with my left hand, keeping the hips square. Then hand to the tall brick. And then keeping my hips right where they are. They're not going to twist. I twist my torso toward the wall. Notice this hand is still bent for a while until I really get the twist in my torso. And when that's feeling good, I can raise the arm. Uttita Trikonasana, revolved triangle pose. To come out, we just swoop the front arm down and the back arm up. And it's kind of fun. All right, so right hip to the wall. We're standing in Tadasana, right, the brick to our right between the wall and our toes. Good, then keep the right foot right where it is and step back, a pretty long step with the back leg, the left leg. And then my hip came back, so press from that back heel forward to bring the hip forward, and from the right big toe base joint, pull back to pull that hip back. Take your fingers, feel your hip blades. They should be equidistant from the wall in front of you. So get that equality right now. Go ahead and be equanimous. Yes, good. All right. Then keeping those hips level, compacting the femur bones into the hip socket. Raise your arms to Hasta. Good. Then bend your right elbow, right arm on the wall, and pivot forward. The right arm can slide with you, but the left arm is reaching forward. When you are parallel to the floor, bring that left arm down to the brick and stop and take stock. What's going on with the pelvis? Once again, press from the heel, the left heel, left hip forward, pull the right hip back. And then when the hips are square, rotate toward the wall. I'm coming up, I'm gonna come see you. These are looking good. Keep weight in the back heel. Straighten both knees if that's appropriate for your knees, but of course don't move into pain. But if you're just letting your knees bend by accident, don't. Everybody keep squaring the hips. Keep squaring the hips. Back, let's see, hang on. Press the left hip forward, pull the right hip back. Good, good. And nice, I see some of you are doing it without the wall. That's good, very good for you. Extend the torso one more time. These are looking good. And then to come out, go ahead and swing the left arm up and down to, so up away from the wall and down in front of you, and then left arm comes up. I didn't explain that very well. Well, we'll go slower on coming out the second side. Good, all right, so second side. This time your left hip is to the wall, brick is at the left side of you. Start in Tadasana. Keeping the left leg right where it is, 2 big steps back with the right leg. And take the time to square the hips. I mean, as mindful as I try to be, my hips go askew when I step back. So press from the right heel, that right hip forward. From the left big toe base joint, pull that hip back. Take your fingers, be sure your pelvis is level. Then Garudasana, arms up. Bend the left arm and put it on the wall. Keep the right arm straight and pivot from the hips. Legs stay straight, legs stay straight. Keep weight in the back leg. When you're parallel to the floor, right hand comes to the brick. And stop and re-square those hips. You can take your left hand off the wall and feel to be sure that your pelvis is straight in back, that your sacrum is not tipping to one side or the other. And put the hand back on the wall. And from that straight pelvis, rotate, twist toward the wall. Keep weight in the right heel. Externally rotate. Internally rotate the right leg. And when you've reached your maximum twist, you can reach that left arm straight up. I'm coming to see again. These are looking good. I see a couple of hips that have gotten askew. So again, remember, press that right hip forward, pull the left hip back. See if you can get those hips level for your last breath. Good. And then to come up, bring that left hand back down towards your leg and swing the right arm up and over to come out. And then step your legs together, Tadasana. All right. Okay, Hasta, Padagustasana. So the next, this next series is our standing Padagustasana at the wall with the strap. Because again, I don't want to focus on balance. That's for another day. That's certainly something worthwhile to do. But this will allow us to focus on keeping the hips in alignment and doing the hip work instead of focusing on not falling over in the pose. So get your strap, and Uttita, Padagustasana is standing hand to toe pose. So I'll show what the pose looks like. And again, raising the wall, you don't have to be standing too close to the wall, but watch first, and I'll do my second side. But you'll start with your right leg. Tuck the knee up into, just watch the shin. Take either the toes, the big toe, and if you do, it's the 3-point grasp, or take your strap and extend the leg. So this is Uttita Hasta Padagustasana 1. Now, this is a bad pose because my shoulder's not on the wall. So if you can't bring your shoulder back to the wall, use a strap. So I'm gonna use a strap, and I can bring my shoulder back to the wall and get my torso level again. Now my hip is hiked up. I don't know if you can see that. So I have to descend the hip. I'll show from this side. My hip wants to hike up because that minimizes the stretch. So descend the hip to make it level, okay? From this is 1, then we go to 2, which is out to the side. And then after some breaths in 2, we're going to cross back over, change hands, and go to 3. And this is the pose that's going to get us closer to Garudasana, our goal pose today. And if you can, this is easier for me this way, you can hold the toe or you can hold the strap, but 2 straight legs, still compacting the hips, still pressing through the standing leg toe base joint. All right, so everybody, be at the wall, have a strap if you think you'll need it. I'm gonna make pictures of y'all bigger, if I can. Yeah, I can. Okay. So Tadasana, press the outer heels, lift the knees, compact the hips here. Then keeping the big toe base joint of your left foot pressing, raise your right leg. Pull that hip, pull the knee into the torso and descend the hip. And then either grab the toe or loop up your foot and extend the foot to Uttita Hasta Padagustasana 1. Go back to the standing leg, press into the big toe base joint, straighten the knee, compact the hip, descend the hip of your left leg, right leg. So level the hips and make sure both shoulders are back at the wall. If you can't get your lifted shoulder back to the wall, make the belt longer. Because you can see if you don't have it back, you're totally askew. So we want to keep the torso open. We want to keep the chest open. I'm coming to C. Yeah, and if you need support, use support. If you don't, so I see some people not doing, if it does not feel good, if you think that this is going to be too much on your hip, you can take a chair or a stool or something like that, and you can practice this way, right? So everybody should be able to do something here. If you are practicing with a chair or stool, though, don't just rest the leg on it. Compact the hips, extend the entire muscular structure of the leg, extend through the big toe base joint, and really work the leg that is being aided, not just totally supported by the chair. Good. We're still straight out in front. We're going to go to the side in a second. Waiting for everybody to, you doing okay there? Good. All right. If you need to move a chair, bring your leg down and move a chair. If, on the other hand, you are just going from Uttita Hasta Padagustasana 1 to 2, re-square the pelvis and hips first. Don't come aside with skewed hips. But then once you have re-squared, move the leg out to the side. Sock both femurs into their hip socket. You can put your hand, the opposite hand on the hip for a little more stability and extend through the lifted leg. Don't just let it hang there. I'm really reaching through it. I'm coming to look, y'all stay. Legs are heavy, I know. These are looking good. Again, standing leg, press the big toe base joint and extend. Even if you're using all sorts of support, extend through the big toe base joint of the lifted leg too. Yes, beautiful. All right, now, time for the crossover. If you need to move a chair, move the chair. But if you are in this position, bring the leg back to the front, change hands, or hold the belt with the other hand, and then bring this leg all the way across. It's a bigger twist than you would think. So keep the keep your standing leg pressing, Keep the lifted legs straight, descend the lifted legs hip. It's a big stretch right here. It's a place we don't normally work. And here too, extend through the big toe base joint. Descend the hip again. I see some of those hips creeping up. Check in with your standing leg. Is it still straight? One more breath with 2 polar straight legs. And then back to center and release the leg. Is anybody in trouble? Everybody's good. Good. All right, second side. Legs are heavy. Tadasana. Compact the hips to start. This time, lift your left leg up. Keep the right hip sucking in. Either belt the foot or grab the toe and extend. Press into the standing big toe base joint. Descend the lifted hip and extend through its big toe base joint. It's easy to just let the foot that's lifted go to sleep. Work that foot. Feel how it helps you reach the leg out. Extend. We were here a little bit long on the first side, so think of happy thoughts. Let's do something to distract ourselves. Raise your right hand. Extend through the leg even more. Can you lift the leg any higher? Then go ahead, bring your right hand back to your hip. Prepare for the transition. If you need to move the chair, move the chair. Descend the standing leg hip now, and then extend it out to the left. Extend through the big toe base joint. I actually do better on this one with my fingers. Really reach through that big toe base joint. This is me just hanging out. This is me really extending. Different pose. Descend the hip. It likes to creep up. Check back in with a standing leg. Press the big toe base joint. And if you need to move the chair to the third position. Come back through the center. And then, bend your knee if you have to, like I did. Pass the leg to the second arm and take the crossover. Keep pressing through the big toe base joint and descending this hip. This one just pulls more. The first two aren't actually much of a stretch for me, but this one is really interestingly a stretch in that back outer quadrant. One more extension, and then back to the center, and release. Is anybody in trouble? My hip and knee people. We're good. All right, cool. All right, we are now ready for Garudasana. And again, if you have knee problems or even hip problems, you don't want to do Garudasana, so I'm showing the alternative. If you have knee or hip problems, what you're going to do is Uttitasana, fierce pose, from Tadasana, buttocks down, engage the thighs, arms up and sit. Notice, don't let your back sway. The challenge of Uttitasana is hips down, arms back, hips down, arms back, and stand up. So if you're doing Uttitasana, take it to your maximum, then stand up, take a breath and do it again, because Garudasana is going to take us a little longer. Garudasana, eagle pose. Once again, we're going to back our buttocks up to the wall so that balance is not an issue. There are two parts to Garudasana, arms and legs. Let's do the legs first. I am mirroring. You will lift your right leg. You will fling it over your left leg so much that it goes behind and the toes come out the other side. So see my toes, you can barely see that, are tucked around my shin. If that doesn't happen for you, it didn't happen for me for a long time, you can just press the foot into the outside of the opposite shin. But ideally, if you pull the toes around, it helps you get a tighter twist and then compact the hips. So let's all try just the legs. You can hold the wall, but you need to be able to bend your knees because that helps you fling more. Lift that right leg and fling it. I'm gonna come see how these are going. Nice Uttitasana. Don't forget to, for me, keeping the arms straight is really hard, and take Uttitasana breaks when you need to. Okay, and be sure that you don't twist off toward your standing leg side. Make sure you're still, if you're in Garudasana, facing forward. Good. All right, and release. We're going to try the other side. So this time you'll pick up your left leg, fling it over your right leg, and see how in the flinging, my torso turned a little toward the standing leg? Then correct. Come back forward. Compact the hips. You still, my standing leg is bent. It can't be completely straight at all. So go ahead and fling, compact the hips, straighten the torso. Engage those quadriceps, hold the hamstrings, the whole thigh is engaged and sucking toward each other. Okay, good, and out. Now we'll just do the arms and then we'll put it all together. So Garudasana arms, start with arms at shoulder height. Then you, let's say, well, we'll do it the same way we did last time. You take your right arm over the left and they cross. So see, over and cross, and I'm now palm to palm. I hope that's visible. This also, for those of us with shoulder and upper back and sometimes neck things, is a lovely stretch. Once you've got this, you press your palms into each other, and everybody lift your elbows a little and feel how that is just a delicious stretch on those upper shoulder and back muscles. And the pose indeed is elbows lifted as high as possible, but don't overdo, because these might be muscles you're not accustomed to using. And release. So this time we're going to do the second side. Arms out, I'm mirroring. You will be flinging your left arm over your right, left arm over the right, and then palm to palm. Once you've got palm to palm, lift the elbows. And release. Now we're going to put it all together. So we're going to be flinging your right leg over the left first, and the opposite arm goes over. Hang on. So if you're flinging your right leg over, it's going to be left arm over. Yeah, and I'm mirroring, which makes it just exponentially more complicated. So let's do the legs first, because some people like to use their fingertips to balance. So lift up your right leg, fling it over, catch the shin, re-square the pelvis forward, and then arms straight out. And this time you're going to do the opposite arm over. So it'll be your left arm over. Press into the standing big toe base joint, compact the hips as we've been doing all class, and then raise your elbows. And I will be silent so we can enjoy Eagle Pose, Garudasana, for a moment. And release the arms, release the legs, second side. Bend the knees a little, this time fling your left leg over, tuck the toes if possible, re-square the pelvis and torso, compact the hips. Then arms out, and opposite arm on top, so your right arm on top, and then raise the elbows. And breathe. Keep compacting the hips, don't slush into the hips. Hip engagement prevents future hip trouble. And release. And if we're doing okay on time, yeah, sure. Let's challenge ourselves. If you want to challenge yourself by doing this away from the wall, we'll do it one more time. We won't hold this long. If you'd like to stay at the wall, that's of course perfectly fine. So I'm not going to mirror this time because it's too complicated for me to say what the correct leg and arm are. So bend your knees. This time we're going to do right leg first, just like we've always done. So swing the right leg over, tuck it behind, and then left arm on top. Square the pelvis and torso, compact those hips, lift the elbows. It's a fun balancing pose. One more breath. And release, step out, and second side. Bend the knees. This time fling the left leg This time, right arm on top, compact your hips, lift the elbows. And release the arms, release the legs. All right, what I have next, just because standing poses should be invigorating, is Anamooka Virasana, upward or downward facing tree pose. So that's a handstand basically. If that is not appropriate for you, there are alternatives. So let me show. If you're gonna do a regular handstand, hands 6 inches to 8 inches away from the wall, take the leg, keep both legs, keep the standing leg straight as you kick up and come to, the wall, which I didn't do. And then straighten your arms and lift up. If that is too much, you can do a wall L. For the wall L, find out where your heels are when you sit your buttocks at the wall. Put a marker there because that's your hand position. Come into a down dog and then put a foot on the wall and then another foot. And press yourself up, wall L. If neither of those are appropriate for you, then you can go ahead and do handstand prep, which is a down dog, walking in, lifting one leg, roll it so that the top of the thigh is facing the floor, don't let it roll out, and just do baby hops. So this is a perfectly acceptable alternative. After you've done a few baby hops with one leg, do the baby hops with your other leg. The goal is to keep the lifted leg over straight. So decide which variation you're going to do. Oh, nice, Karen. Karen, your hands might have been a tiny bit far away from the wall. Is that possible, or is it just a weird camera angle? I like how much attention y'all are paying to keeping those legs straight. So if you're up and full, yes, nice. Then lift the buttocks up toward the heels. If you're upside down, lift the buttocks up. Yes. Move that buttock flesh away from your head, up toward your heels. Yeah. Nice. If you're doing the bunny hops, keep the lifted legs straight. That's your whole focus. You're not trying to really go up. You just want to keep the lifted legs straight, because that's hard. If you've already gone up, go up on your other leg. Challenge yourself. We'll take just another minute for these. And then everybody come down, good. And since you've been upside down, rest for a moment with your forehead against either the wall or the floor to reestablish your equilibrium. And then we're going to do a floor twist to release any pressure in the lower back. So we will be on our mats on the floor for Jatara Parvatanasana. And nobody said anything about back pain. If you suffer from chronic back pain, what you're gonna want to do, why is this, okay, that's the mat, that's fine. If you suffer from chronic back pain, you're gonna want a blanket for your sacrum. So you would put it, and you'll be on your mat. I'm just showing sideways so it's more visible. You would put it like this, right? And it's for back pain. If you have no back pain, your sacrum can be on the floor. Jatara Parvatanasana is typically done with straight legs, but since we're warming down, we're gonna do it with bent knees. I bring my knees into my chest. Both of my arms are extended at shoulder height, palms up. I engage my abdominal muscles and roll them away from my right side to counterbalance what my heavy legs are about to do. So with my abdomen going that way, I bring my knees up and over to hover over my left elbow. Super important, my left shoulder over my right elbow. So my knees are over my right elbow. My left shoulder is still grounded. Left shoulder does not come up off the floor as much as I hover. Hover here, don't let the legs rest, it's really hovering. And again, if I stopped working my abdomen, I just fall over. So really pull the abdomen back toward the left hip, and then back to center, and then second side. So decide if you need a blanket. Lie on your back. Good, some people are already in, that's fine. And engage the abdomen. Tuck the knees as far up into your chest as you can. And hover. Since some people have already started, I'm going to trust you to be for several breaths, like maybe 6, 7 breaths on one side, then 6, 7 breaths on the opposite side. Keep pulling the abdomen back toward the opposite hip, the hip away from where the knees are.
Vicky.
Yes.
What is the name of this asana?
Jatara Parvatanasana.
Okay, let me write down.
And its full version is with straight legs, which is harder and which is not appropriate for the very end of class.
Okay, Jatara Parvatasana, Jatara Parvatasana.
Jatara Parvatanasana. Parvatanasana.
Can you type on chart?
Let's see. I think I can do it in the chat. Hang on. Jatara hang on. Checking the spelling.
Jatara.
Vatanasana. There.
Jatara Parvat. Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, now everybody, if you have done even amounts, if you have not done even amounts, then finish up and everybody come to seated.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Jatara.
And we have time for a quick, that's a terrible thing to say in yoga. We have time for a delicious and leisurely Padagustasana. So take your support, again, as much support as you're going to need to keep your knees at least level with your pelvis. So I need more blankets after my groin injury. It is sad, but I'm trying not to let my ego get in this. No ego. And have a break. Oh, I'm up so high. Actually, I don't think I need all of this. Maybe just half of this. So we'll start from Dandasana. We'll enter properly. So from Dandasana, inner thighs down, extend the legs. Take your right hand, I'm mirroring again, and really just use the strength of your arm to pull your leg in. We do that to keep the groins soft. And bring the heel close to the perineum. And do the same thing with the other leg. Bring the heels together. Take your hands to the blankets behind you or a brick behind you. And use the hands to lift the torso up away from those legs and press the heels. And you can see, because of my groin injury, my right side is a little higher. So if that happens to you, don't try to force it down. Lift the opposite side so that you're even. So the side that can do more should back off a little bit so that you maintain your equilibrium. Press those heels together. Suck the femur bones that we've been talking about all class back up into the hip socket. Feel how when you do that, it does lower the knees. Just pulling those femur bones into that hip socket. So pressing the heels, sucking the femurs into the hip socket, and lift the sternum. And of course, we'll make it more challenging because that is what we do. Take your brick, put the brick in between your feet, narrow eyes first, and come back to pressing your heels together. Now your knees will be higher than your hips. That's okay because we won't be in the brick position long. Press the heels, suck the femurs into the hip socket. Lift up through the torso. It's interesting, after just a few minutes of doing this, I feel the injured groin release. That tells me I should do it every day. Easier to know sometimes than to actually do, but I will. This I can do. And then we're going to take one more width. So turn the brick one more width sideways, not the longest width, but the medium width. And once again, press the heels. Suck the femurs into the hip socket. Lift up through the sternum, and you can use your hands behind you to help that lift, so all the weight does not come crashing down. And then remove the foot block entirely, come back to the first Padagustasana position, and see, after just that very small amount of work, has your Padagustasana gotten any closer to the ground? And mine has. It's just miraculous. Press the heels, suck the femurs into the hip socket. All right. To come out, be kind to your groins. Take your hands, manually lift your knees together. Extend your legs in Tadasana. And prepare for your favorite Savasana. If you use a blanket under your head, be sure that it comes all the way down your neck and touches the tops of your shoulders, but does not go under your shoulders. And for everyone, when you lie down into your Savasana, start with bent knees and no bricks behind your head. Bring your torso down first. Roll and tuck your shoulders to get those shoulders moving back away from your head. That'll help necks, that'll help shoulder problems, that keeps the spine straight. Palms up, at least 45-degree angle away from your body. And then one at a time, extend your legs. Make sure the buttock flesh is moving away from the head. And then sometimes after I've done the whole leg thing, I have to tuck my shoulders one more time. Glasses off if you wear them to keep the temples soft. And once you're in position, allow your eyes to close. Release the entire weight of your body into the floor. Relax all effort. Let your eyes release into the back of your head. Relax your tongue, jaw, throat. If thoughts come into your head, acknowledge them and let them go. Return your attention to your own breath. Draw your awareness back. Extend your fingers. Extend your toes. And your hands to your rib cage. And draw one knee into your chest and hold it. Followed by the other and hold them both. And then roll to your right side and rest for a moment. And when you're ready, with your left arm, press yourself up to seated, head last. Let your head hang. Don't drive with your head. And we'll pay our respects to the practice. Namaste. Thank you for sharing your practice with me this morning, and happy Saturday.